Hello and welcome to the Appeon 2016 product suite. In this particular tutorial, we're extending Power Builder functionality to both Appeon Web and Appeon mobile environments. For this tutorial, I'm using Microsoft Windows 10, a 64-bit version, SAP Power Builder Classic, build 4098, the new Appeon for Power Builder 2016, and along with that, the new Appeon Workspace loaded onto a Nexus 9 tablet with a brand new Android 7.0 operating system. We'll also be using the Microsoft Internet Explorer and Edge web browsers. What we're looking at here in this tutorial is to show you how to extend your functionality to both the web and the mobile environment, or sometimes functionality that crosses both environments, which we call the general features and functions. However, before you can do that, you need to have a library that Appeon has provided to you called the Appeon Workarounds library, because it has all sorts of objects inside that to be able to extend that functionality to let you interact with the local operating system or interact with the device to get the functionality, the look and feel that you're looking for. So we'll have a look at that. But first of all, we need to get that library attached to our Power Builder application. So in order to do that, I'm just going to trip over here to File Manager to show you that when you install Appeon, it's going to create under Program Files a folder called Appeon and then another folder called Developer 2016. Inside of that, there are subfolders, Appeon Workarounds 8.0 all the way to 1.2.6, which of course means Power Builder 8 through Power Builder 12.6. Because I'm using 12.6, I'm going to choose the Appeon Workarounds library that matches my Power Builder release. And I'm going to copy that to the actual development environment. So I've opened up a little application here in Power Builder 12.6 called Word Search, and I'm just going to paste this library in here, Appeon Workarounds.PowerBuilder library, and we can take a trip over here to the development environment, and you can see here that the Word Search application does not have this library in its library list. And we need to add that as the first step now that we've copied the Power Builder library to that working folder. So I'm going to use the right-hand mouse button here on the target, select Properties, and we're going to add the Appeon Workarounds library to that. And once that is done, then we can hit OK. And you can see that the Appeon's Workaround library has been attached. And it has data windows inside of it, it has global functions inside of it, it has structures, and of course it has user objects. So these are all the object classes that we're going to need to be able to extend our functionality. So now that we've actually got the library attached, everything looks good. Remember, don't use the one at the actual location of Developer 2016. Copy that into your Power Builder development workspace for that application. Next thing is, let's have a look at the Appeon help file because it has all the information here about general, web, and mobile specific functions and objects. So if you can see here that if we actually launch now the Appeon for Power Builder 2016 help file and we drill down to Workarounds API Guide, General API, that we have all sorts of objects that can help us out here to do things, interact with the client, extended functions, logging, file upload and download, handling different labels, distributed data windows in EA Server, or handling COM objects in .NET. So there are all sorts of different things here that can help us out. One of the new things here in Appeon 2016, of course, is to also handle JSON data. But for now, we're just looking at the extended functions. So I'm going to expand that particular object, and we can see here that there are a list of methods that will extend the functionality for us. Key ones to start out with here is client type. In the client type here, this function is going to return us the value web, Power Builder, which stands for Power Builder native, of course, and then mobile. So calling this method, we can introspect and find out where the application is running. So to give us an example of that, I'm going to return back here to the Power Builder environment and flip over to an application called Order Entry. And within the order entry system, I'll pull up my to-do list here. I do have a login check. And if I open up this particular PowerScript code, you can see here there is a call to a method to get at the value. And the value I'm looking for is, did I get the value Power Builder? Or in other words, am I running native? at this point. If I'm running native, then I can call a standard connect on the SQL communications area because I'm a two-tier application. However, if I'm running in a web or mobile flavor, then I want to actually use a web service because I'm running in an N-tier application environment, and the application server is the one that's actually doing the database connect and validation. So I use a different strategy if I'm running in that mode versus a native Power Builder mode. You notice that this method here is not the one I just showed you. So I need to bring up my to-do list again so I can show you how I get the client type. And that method is basically the fruits of calling and loading, first of all, loading the Appeon external functions non-visual object, and then calling that method get client type and loading that into an instance variable, is client type. If I return back to here, this method here just returns me the value of that instance variable, which has been loaded from that Appeon non-visual object. And so I get Power Builder, and away I go, or I get the fact that I am running web or mobile. In this case, I'm going to run the application in the web to show you that this is actually going to call the web service. Now the web service itself, that I can go to inetpub, www-root, and the web service here is called login, OES login. Go to Go File, Session, Web Service, and then C. So I'll just stop at this point, and we'll just run the application here. So I can hit the run jogger icon here, the lightning bolt. I'm going to run the order entry application running the web browser. The application is starting. And I'm going to come, it knows that it's running in a web environment. And you can see here, after the welcome, that is a login. So I'm just going to type in Chris for the password here and hit OK. And we'll see what happens. Invalid user ID. So if I go back here to my session, that inside IIS, you can see here that there is a log file been produced here. So when the web service is called from any application, that it's going to validate the fact that you passed me the user ID and password, and I returned you a -1 saying that user ID password is an invalidation combination. So if I come back here to the login screen and I type in SQL, it does go through. If I return back here to the web service, you can see here that the web service was called a second time, about a minute later, passing the user ID DBA SQL, and the return code was 0. That is a valid user ID combination. So everything's working well, and we can see that we did actually follow that alternate code. If it's a web or mobile environment, call the web service to validate the user at this point. So I'll just put that browser away. We'll come back to this application in a few minutes again for some other interesting things. But let's go back to the help file here, and the fact that we can also call other methods in here, like get me the operating system type, what is the URL that I'm actually running in this particular application, what is the IP address, and things like that that can be called in here. So if we go back to the web browser application, and I was to actually go to the About dialog, and then go to the web tab page here, you can see I'm calling functions in that object again to find out the fact that I'm actually running in the Internet Explorer web browser. That's the handle to the browser, the IP address of the Appeon server that I'm talking to. It's available here as on the local host or whatever the DNS entry is. I'm running in Windows 10, and I'm actually talking to a .NET server, not a J2EE server. And here is the actual caching location of where the Internet Explorer web browser is keeping my temporary data. So if I use the right-hand mouse button and I go copy here, and I would go back to one of my file managers, that will find out here that it actually did go to the users Chris app data roaming Appeon, and it did create a sub-entry, and in that sub-entry here are different files, temporary files that it's using, which of course are XML and HTML and JavaScript to run this application that you see in the background. And there's also a log file being produced here by this application. It's being kept in this temporary work area. I can see that by going here to the actual icon here that says View Log, and we can actually look at the log file that I just showed you physically where it was. And you can see here that This is the order entry system that it's actually running here in the web environment. That here's the actual cookie that's being used to track you between the Appeon server and the web browser. It's actually connected using AJAX for high-speed data manipulation back and forth between data window buffers. And it is running inside the Windows 10 operating system. And what I've been doing is I've been calling that Appeon external functions object with the different methods to get this information and logging it so that if there are problems, for example, the support staff know where to actually come back and where to look for things to get more information as to what's going on if I do have problems. So here's an example then of methods here that are general in nature. And this is one of the main objects there to get the information of what's going on. So the next one is, those are some example of general functions. What about web-specific functions? Well, web functions that we saw there that were the IP address, what type of browser it is, what is the handle to the web browser, which may be useful if you're calling external API functions in the operating system. On the mobile environment, for example, there are mobile-specific functions. So let's return back to the help file for that. I'm going to close the general API one here and open up the mobile API, and we can see here that there are different mobile APIs here for doing audio things, barcoding, handling the camera, the GPS, capturing images from your camera, sending notifications, doing online payments, all sorts of things that you can use here in the mobile object. So this mobile API is very, very powerful. For example, in the audio area here, the object that handles the actual device audio player, that is called Appeon Mobile Audio EX. And if you drill down here and look at the functions, you can see here that we can pause or resume, we can play, we can stop. So there are methods there to be able to handle playing music through the device. And that goes all the way through for the different types of things like a GPS, for example. There is a geolocation object, and it has functions inside of it to be able to find out, for example, where you are. To have a look at this particular example, we're going to actually fire up my tablet. As you can see here, we have on the right-hand side Appeon Mobile, and I'll just start that up. And the different applications that I have installed here, one of them is Appeon Mobile Tests, or AM Tests, on the right-hand side. I'm just going to tap on that. And it's a little application that I wrote just to be able to test what's going on. For example, Appeon Workspace tests here, just to see, for example, what's going on. Whether I have assistive or passive touch active, whether I have mouse move enabled for data windows, the type of orientation. In this case, I'm actually using landscape mode, so the orientation return code at the bottom there you see is return code number 2. We can also check things like barcodes. We can do camera things. And if I was to pick up, for example, the tablet and say activate camera, you'll actually be able to now see my keyboard at this point. I've been able to capture my keyboard to my Appeon mobile application and save that. So just to prove the fact that I can activate either the front or the rear cameras, I can put the camera into snapshot mode or into video mode, and then capture whatever I'm doing. So this would be nice, for example, if you had a roadside inspection application and there was an inspector that was inspecting a bridge, wanted to take pictures of the bridge, structural problems with decaying concrete, rebars that are being exposed, etc. Could capture those pictures of the bridge and then save it away in the database on a binary large object. So we can deal with the camera. Under connection here, for example, we can see that I am connected to the Appeon's server via the Ethernet connection. I can run some device tests at this point. You can see that I am on a Nexus 9. Type of memory I have, what's free memory at this point, and what's the resolution of the system, the device ID, which may be useful if you want to track different mobile users and their actual device ID versus the user ID, what type of devices they're using. So there's all sorts of different things we can do. We can do a geolocation, for example, and find out where we are. that we can do global tests. At this point, there's the IP address. There's our cache directory on the mobile device. And we're actually running in a mobile environment. There's the IP address of the Appeon server that we're communicating to. We are using the Android 7 operating system. And we're dealing with a .NET server, which is a server type 2 as opposed to 1, which would be Java. We can do mail from here. We can do geolocation mapping. We can run different media, near-far communication, and notification here, for example. So if I hit add notification, that you can see here from Appeon, this is a test notification message here. So this add notification did work. If I hit remove notification, you can see here that the notification does get removed when I swipe down from the top. Well, another little test, barcode. If I was to hit read here, the read command button will activate the camera, where I can actually position it on a barcode. You can see the barcode comes back. It tells me the type of barcode it is, which is a product code, type format 6. There's the code number itself, 959, blah, 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 blah. And that if I just type that number in, and I hit the create button, then one of the things that we can do here is we can actually build a barcode, and then we could print that out, which would be nice if you're building an Appeon mobile stock application that reads barcodes, or the fact that you actually want to print a barcode out. You could print it out on the device and then to a sticky label and stick it on the actual product itself. So these are just some examples of where you can actually get low-level device control, and how you could extend your Power mobile application into that particular world. So we'll just put that away at the moment, and then we'll just conclude. So we've been able to show you general functions that you can do, web functions, mobile functions that can be done. So all sorts of information that you can do to extend your web and mobile environment. What happens now when you get the new version of Appeon 2017 or Appeon 2018? How do you actually upgrade? Well, it's going to be pretty simple to do that. What you're going to do is you'll return back to where Appeon is installed. So now you're going to get, for example, instead of an Appeon 2016 or 2017, 2018, you're going to see that folder. You're going to see again the Workarounds folder, and you're going to find a Workarounds Power Builder library. So you're going to find a Workarounds Power Builder library that for that particular new release, and again you're going to copy that over to the application that you want to upgrade. There's the actual test application here, and the test application is using a Workarounds Power Builder library that it's 2.7 megs. And if I was to actually paste at this point and replace the file, you'll see here now that the Workarounds file is a little bit bigger. It's 3.4 megs. That comes from Appeon 2016. What you saw before was the Workarounds file from Appeon 2015. So it's a bit bigger because it has more functionality. So that's all you need to do is basically just replace the Appeon's Workaround file, return back to the application itself, and then instantiate other objects or use new methods that are available in the newer Appeon release. So that's all there is as far as upgrading from a previous version. So now we've shown you that you can actually extend your applications by adding the library, use the help file to find out what's there, call specific objects and methods to extend that functionality, and away you go. So congratulations that we've now given you the heads up information to be able to extend your Power Builder applications to the web and mobile world using the Appeon's extension libraries. Thanks very much for watching.